Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Good afternoon, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, March the 14th. Well, news on the medical marijuana front. Yesterday, two separate lawsuits were filed, one in Lee County and one in Pulaski County by two unsuccessful applicants for the marijuana cultivation permits that were scored a couple of weeks ago. They allege a variety of shortcomings in the Medical Marijuana Commission's consideration of these applications, insufficient review of some rules, unequal grading, also some allegations of conflicts of interest on the part of two commissioners. Well, one of those lawsuits reached Circuit Judge Wendell Griffin in Little Rock, who this morning issued a temporary restraining order. He said Naturalis Health LLC had presented enough facts that they deserved a hearing on the question of whether the administrative rules were properly followed. He's going to have a hearing at 10 a.m. Friday on this matter and decide whether to issue a preliminary injunction. For now, the procedure, however, is frozen. There was supposed to be a Medical Marijuana Commission meeting tonight at which 5 permits were likely to be awarded. Those permits are not going to be awarded today, that's for sure. They may not have the hearing at all. Some of the topics on the agenda for tonight were some of the very same questions that are raised in these lawsuits. So right now, a great deal of uncertainty hangs over the medical marijuana issue. Out at the state capitol today, they're breezing through the special legislative session agenda. As the governor had wished, there is general consensus on the roster of bills he said could be considered in this session. They're going to find a way to pay more money to local pharmacists who had been unhappy about the reimbursement procedures under the Medicaid expansion bill. The legislature is going to pass what amounts to a backdoor school voucher bill. There's going to be a direct state subsidy to people who save money through a 529 savings plan to send their kids to private schools K through 12. This is a historic diversion of state money into private school education. It would appear that legislation to make it a little bit harder to appeal permits given to people who put off animal waste is going to pass the legislature. Is this about the C&H hog farm? Is it not? There's a great deal of difference of opinion on that. The last big angle pending in the legislature is a piece of legislation that was supposedly to clean up a question raised by a recent Supreme Court decision on having a jury trial on a foreclosure matter. The bill, as it was written, opened up a world of new topics that could be waived for jury trials, and trial lawyers said it was a very bad bill. The bill's been amended only to apply to lending contracts, but this still could be a whole lot more than foreclosures. It's still a bad piece of legislation. Even some good legislators saying, well, maybe we can fix this in the regular legislative session next year. Those are dangerous words. Free beer tomorrow. Oh, and of course, we've got to do something about ATVs. This is supposedly a little bill that was pushed by former Representative Nate Bell, and the law is that currently that you can't drive more than 3 miles on a regular highway in an ATV. They want to be able to decide what roads are best for them to use. If they need to drive from Felsenthal to Bentonville and the best way to cover the 300 miles is on a highway, well, that should be their decision to make, not the state police or anybody else's. Interesting special primary election in Russellville last night for a vacant state Senate seat, the late Greg Standridge's seat. Breanne Davis defeated Bob Bailey for the seat. The interest here is that Davis was backed by the governor in virtually every major lobby in the state. Bailey was backed by a group called Conduit for Action, an ultra-conservative group that's spending a lot of money trying to elect people who will beat Obamacare, who will kill the Medicaid expansion program in Arkansas. He lost, so you could say this was a win for Obamacare. Breanne Davis is no friend of the small working man. Her money comes almost entirely from major business lobbies. She'll face a resistance-style Democrat in the general election in May. That's Teresa Galagos. Take a look at that. She'll be fighting an uphill battle in what's been a Republican district, but it's worth watching. Speaking of which, though, victories are not impossible. Connor Lamb, a Democrat, picked up a seat in a Pennsylvania congressional district that Donald Trump carried by 20 points and had tried fiercely to retain for the Republican Party. Trump went. Nearly every member of his family went. Mike Pence went. Didn't do him any good. Their candidate got beaten. It was close, but it was pretty amazing to upset a Republican in a district that was so heavily for Donald Trump before. Let's talk about guns in other states, too. A teacher in California was having a gun safety class. The gun went off. One of the people working on this gun safety class is a school resource officer. Fortunately, the bullet didn't hit a student directly, just the ceiling. A student was injured by falling debris. Resource officer in a middle school in Virginia fired his gun accidentally. Charlie Collins still thinks we need more guns in schools. Teachers don't have enough to do. They're clearly capable of handling a gun as well as looking after an unruly class of rambunctious 6-year-olds. Don't you think, Charlie? Well, and speaking of students, they were a little rambunctious in Arkansas and the rest of the country today. I close out my resistance segment with a tribute to students all over the United States who peacefully and thoughtfully and very profoundly demonstrated against gun violence and to do something about the things that produce things like the massacres in Florida. In Arkansas, we had a great variety of demonstrations. The Little Rock School District encouraged their students to take part in demonstrations, and they were well attended and well done. The Arkansas School for Math and Science, which prides itself on having some of the smartest students in the state, tried to discourage protests down there by reminding students they'd be disciplined if they participated. They did anyway. The authoritarian Bentonville School Board in hard right northwest Arkansas also said there'd be no protests at Bentonville High School and that students would be punished for doing so, and senators like Bart Hester said this was a great thing. We need order in our schools. Well, hundreds and hundreds of Bentonville High School students lined the street outside the high school today protesting in favor of doing something about gun violence in America. Imagine that, adults telling kids that they shouldn't do something and then they went ahead and did it anyway. Adults and parents just never will learn, will they? So hats off to the resistors of Arkansas. Keep it up. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.